We all want to feel peace in our lives. Peace in our choices, our beliefs, our relationships, and our environment. I've learned that this desired contentment is often found through holding on to less. When we pare down what we own, what we consume, and what we value, we're left with what's intentional, a personalized curation of what is important and true and useful to us. I'm Shannon Leyko, and you're listening to Paring Down, a podcast aimed at helping you declutter not only your home, but any area of your life that's overwhelming. Here, we're having interesting and honest conversations about the physical and mental clutter that drowns out what truly matters to each of us. And together, we'll learn how to pare it all down, not for the sake of perfection or becoming rigid, rather so we can move through life with less overwhelm and more joy, wisdom, and peace. Happy 2024. How are we here already? I feel like I am practically Xenon girl of the 21st century. I'm pretty sure that happens in like 2049. So, we're creeping up there to space station age and lots of metallic. I'm off track. Listen, it is the new year, and I wanted to bring you an episode that doesn't feel like we're pushing ourselves towards a resolution or a goal that will inevitably fall through on week 3, and then we all feel bad about it. But I do think part of living an intentional life is thinking towards the future, is coming up with these goals and intentions for our lives and working towards them on a journey. And one of the things that I know a lot of us have thought about, but feels a little bit overwhelming to implement in our lives, is how to live more sustainably. And that really goes so hand in hand with living with less, because obviously the point of sustainability is that we consume less and we consume in less wasteful ways in order to preserve the longevity of not only our planet, but also our communities and ourselves even while we're still here. So sustainability is really important, but I know that it can be a little bit overwhelming. And that is why I am very, very honored and excited to bring to you today our guest, who is Shila Wattamwar. Shila is the CEO of Radiant Global Advisory and the founder of Sustainable Me. Through her experience supporting the investment community and helping drive capital towards sustainability, she realized that she also wants to bring sustainability into the everyday context of people's lives. This includes areas such as fashion, skincare, coffee, wine, groceries, travel, etc. And she really empowers people just with the knowledge to how we can change our behaviors without getting overwhelmed by all of the sustainability noise. Early this year, Shila will be publishing her book, Simple Sustainable Behaviors for Sustainable Living, which will outline 52 facts and ways to live more sustainably, and it encourages one behavior each week of the year. So hopefully we can enter the new year with this idea in mind to live lives a little more sustainably. So let's welcome Shila Wattamwar. All right, Shila, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Real pleasure to be here. Thank you, Shannon. And I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Me too, because this is a subject that I have always thought about, but I feel like it is so abstract that it intimidates me a little bit. And so I know that that's exactly what you do, is you make it make sense for everybody. So this is going to be excellent. I'd love if you could just tell the listeners who you are and more about what you do on a high level.
Sure. So, hi, everyone. I'm Shila Wattamwar. I focus and work on all things sustainability. So, for a large part of my career, my focus was on sustainable investing, where I worked for an organization that rated companies based on their environmental, social, and governance initiatives. And the idea there was to make sure that investors really understood those nuances about a company and would drive their investor capital into the companies that, best aligned with what they were looking for, best aligned with their values. I was there for over 10 years, and I am now kind of on the other side of the equation. I'm working with companies and helping them, especially those companies with some type of impact or sustainability product, helping them really grow their business, their operation, so they can in turn have a further footprint with those sustainable products. and as well as working with people, just consumers or people like you and I, Shannon, making sure that that they understand a bit more about sustainability, and that we're bringing this, like you said, really abstract, complicated topic to the context that they understand, to kind of meet them where they are. So the food that they eat, the things that they drink, the things that they wear, the things that they use around their household. How can we make those simple things that they're already thinking about a bit more sustainable? So that's what I'm
Wow.
doing right now.
Just a little bit. That's really, really cool. I am so impressed that you're doing the work on both sides, because I think I either hear about people who are in that sustainability investments side of thing, or the more practical level. And the fact that you are doing both shows such passion and intelligence that surrounds this entire subject. So I am super curious, what got you so passionate about sustainability? How did this become your entire career?
Yeah, great question. And I kind of stumbled upon it on the first part of my career where I was working in indexing. So in financial services, and, was exposed to a pension fund wanting to drive, capital, some of their investment dollars into these areas of environmental conservation, or basically waste and water and energy conservation. And I thought, wow, it's pretty amazing that they're looking to put millions of dollars into these areas. And as I started doing more and more research, I started understanding why it was so important. And so, later, a little bit later on in my career, during my second maternity leave, when I was out with my second newborn, I thought, well, if I want to go back to work, I really want to go back and do something that I love, something that I think makes a difference. And frankly, I didn't have experience on the actual sustainability side, but I slowly and surely got that experience by working with a nonprofit called CDP, and then working with this company, Sustainalytics, that I was then with for 10 years. And it was a really nice relationship because I came with the financial services background, and that's where this whole concept of sustainability was growing the most. And they had the sustainability folks. And so we were really able to teach people, or teach each other rather, what we needed to grow the business. And maybe, Shannon, I'll just mention one thing. The fact that you had talked about kind of being on all sides of the equation. I just think it's so important, and that this concept of kind of sustainable living or driving for a more sustainable society is really embraced by all three stakeholders: the investor, the corporation, and the consumer. Because if we can really kind of mobilize all three of them, I think we're really in a better place to drive for that more sustainable society. And so part of that is actually threading a common weave throughout, feeding cohesion with similar terminology, similar principles. And that's kind of what drives me to, be have some hand across all three of those stakeholders.
Yes. Well, because, I one of the things that I feel like sometimes individuals balk at when it comes to sustainability is this idea that, really, is me shopping at a sustainable brand, is that really going to make a difference? Or is me using a reusable straw, like, does that matter? Or, and then we start pointing fingers. It's the billionaires and their airplanes, they're the problem. Or it's the way that livestock is raised in the water, right? Like, and we start pointing at all these big problems, then it becomes so overwhelming. We feel like we are just this tiny little dot, and how can we possibly make a difference? But I love how you just said that we all work together, right? Like, these big corporations are not going to be successful unless we, the consumer, shop at them, or if the investors with the money to start, to help, are also invested. Like, it really does matter that all three work together. If we want to see those big, high level changes with where all the money is, we are part of that as the consumer. And so I love how you just
Absolutely.
put that together there. Um, you know, and I know we've already kind of started to dive into the conversation about what sustainability looks like, but can you break down, what does being sustainable mean?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, Shannon, I was really excited to kind of have this conversation at the backdrop of your theme around minimalism, because I think that there really is a connection and synergy to sustainability and being a minimalist. So living more sustainably and being a minimalist. First of all, when you have less things around you, you just feel better. So that's, I mean, part one. It's like I've joked and called it the sustainability of me. So like it makes me feel better. It makes me feel more sustainable when I just the less that I have around me. But but really both concepts involve consuming less and wasting less. And so when looking at this concept of, let's say, circularity, it's a word that's often used. It is a model that is used to think about sustainability, and the objective there is to produce goods and services sustainably by limiting the consumption and waste of resources like raw materials, water, and energy. So it may not be exactly the same in that it's, reducing the consumption and waste of the things that we have. But again, in the production of those things, it's also kind of reducing the waste and consumption of the materials that we use. So essentially, you're looking at consumption and waste from the perspective of not consuming, extra water, trees, agriculture, or not consuming in ways that promote more fossil fuels, carbon emissions, and not wasting such that the waste sits in these huge landfills for thousands of years or in our oceans, harming our sea life. Um, and this absolutely corresponds to our actions. According to the EPA and actually a multitude of resources, because I had to actually fact check this because it was such a crazy number. But humans account for over 95% of the climate change issues. So it's their behavior, it's their choices that are accounting for a lot of these issues that are, hurting the sustainability of our planet.
Wow. Yeah, it's really sustainability as I think about it is really about making sure that our world continues functioning for as long as possible, right? Like that's what it means to be sustainable is the long haul. That's why we don't choose even if you break it down into your own life, right? For me, I try not to choose or implement habits or like hope for a habit that's just not sustainable in the long run. When I was writing a book, I
That's
was
right.
like, I'm going to write 500 words a day because I can stick to that. That's a sustainable choice for me. And then to broaden that into like the rest of the world, I think about that as parents, this is something that matters because our kids, God willing, are going to be here when we are not, and our grandkids. And this world does not end with us, right? And so sustainability
Absolutely.
is really to me such an empathetic choice, and it's really a communal and selfless choice, and I it's something that I admire so much about it. um, why do you think that sustainability feels too abstract to people? Why do you think that?
It's a great question. I think it's because sustainability is something that's very personal. I think when we first started hearing about this concept of sustainability, I think people tried to lump so much into that. And you were either sustainable or you were not. And the truth is, it is actually quite an umbrella term. It's a broad term that captures so many different concepts and so many different themes. And different people have a different connection to each of those themes. So for instance, I come across people that really care about tobacco from the perspective of, or not using tobacco from the perspective of health and wellness, from the perspective of productivity in the workforce, so they focus on, supporting either campaigns or supporting products that minimize those tobaccos or divest out of companies that have X amount of revenue coming from tobacco. Others care about gender diversity, women on the board, and they want to, buy and purchase and invest in companies that really promote women or diversity. Others care about, carbon emissions and climate change. And so, in an ideal world, sure, we'd care about all of it and we could bring it all together. But that's when it becomes daunting and really overwhelming. But if you can choose the areas that you care about most and start driving your, actions and behaviors towards those, I think that's a really good starting point. And I'll mention that, sustainability is not all about just climate change or the environment. I think a lot of people think, it's a definition, or it's an area that people can relate to most, or people can understand most. But the truth is that it also extends into social issues. To live in a more sustainable world, we also have to embrace equality and diversity. And then we're in a more socially just and societable world, and sustainable world, which is all part of that.
I have goosebumps listening to everything that you just said. That's so beautiful, and it feels really good to me, to my heart, listening to that. Both sides of that equation, or both of the things that you just said about making it personal, right? Like when we can narrow things down, that's when we actually
That's right.
can succeed in making a change in our life. So I love that you said we don't have to choose every single issue. Like, what is something that when you think about it has an impact on your heart, and start there and just focus on that area instead of trying to do it all? Because I actually had that question written down, like, how can we avoid this all or nothing thinking? I think I fall into that. I'm like, well, I couldn't find reusable bags that worked and with the Ziploc for my kids' lunches, and now I'm a failure. So I guess I'm just gonna just do all of the things wrong, right? Like I think we all kind of feel that some way. If we're not doing it all right, we just give up and say it's, if it's too hard for me to start shopping at and find a place to buy all my clothes sustainably right now, then why am I even bothering with a reusable straw? Like, it does not have to be all or
Exactly right.
nothing. And I love what you said about diversity as well, and equality, because you're right. Sustainability for the future of our world means adapting. It means growing. It means being better than we were before. And that absolutely does not just stop with climate and environmental. I mean, that's actually part of society, right? I mean, societies have grown and changed so
Absolutely.
much, and that's why the human race has done so well, and we have to be part of that.
Absolutely. And, there is actually a connection there too. Those that are, at a social disadvantage, or, are in a lower socioeconomic, place in their life, they're going to be affected by that environmental and climate change piece even more than those that are not. So again, there's that, it embraces sustainability, embraces both those concepts, and especially because there is a strong connection there.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Um, I am curious, what are some of the biggest myths that people believe about living sustainably?
I think you mentioned one of them, that, what can I do? It's not going to really make a difference. And the truth is, everything makes a difference. And one by one, we'll reach critical mass, and that makes a difference, right? So I think that anything that you can do to drive for sustainability, and the actions that you choose are really helpful. So don't dismiss it if it's available. And in fact, and I think we may talk about this a little later on, but I think that a lot of the actions that each of us can do are actually quite obvious. I'm hoping that, the more you're educated, the more kind of you understand the impacts of those actions, you're more driven to actually act on those, or do those things. So, I think that, don't think that it doesn't make a difference. It absolutely makes a difference. I think the second thing is that, and again, just kind of expanding a little bit more on this whole concept of sustainability is not just one thing. It's really understanding that, there are these different facets, and there are parts of those facets that are important for risk management for a company. So a company, for instance, may need to manage their own kind of operations to reduce their exposure to physical climate risks, i.e., randomized weather patterns, and so forth. And that's still kind of a sustainability act. Whereas there's other types of sustainability acts that a company can really pursue, that is um, focused on the sustainability of society. So affordable housing, I think, is often a great example. A real estate company may not necessarily be doing or pursuing affordable housing just only for their own ROI or for their bottom line benefit, but also to promote that societal effect. So, I think it's, again, understand when or it's important for people to understand when they hear this concept of sustainability, really understand what that means, really understand what that claim that the company is making means, so that they can better understand it, rather than just think either it's false or it's greenwashing or that it's fully implementable. Like there's always nuances.
Exactly. And since you have that experience working with people who are at the top, their companies or the investors actually making the change with the money to then offer those resources and options for us, the consumer. Um, what would you say to those people who are critical of that and say anyone who's running a business or these big wealthy investors, none of them have the best intentions for our economy or for our world. They just care about the money side. Like everyone's just trying to make money. That's why you can't really believe them. It's all greenwashing just to play a trick on us and get our money. What would you say to them since you actually know these people?
Yeah, what I would say to them is that, look, it is partially about the money, because frankly, you need money to be able to invest into becoming more sustainable as a company. Right now, running, creating products that are more sustainable come at a higher price point. And the more that people demand it, the more they can scale that price point. So, yes, it is partially about being able to fund that action, even at the company side, as well as the demand. The other thing I'd say is, and again, you touched on this and said it really nicely. It can't be all or nothing. So a company is often on its journey, and on a sustainability journey. They may, you know, they may fix their packaging, or they may pursue a more sustainable packaging, but their raw materials may not be fully sustainable. Again, as more revenue comes in, as consumers demand more of that product, the more they have to be able to fund those next parts of their sustainability journey. So that's what I'd say. One thing I would say to the company, though, is really report transparently. Tell the consumer what you're doing and what you're not doing, and what your steps are towards a more sustainable journey, so that, again, consumers really do understand where you're at. So and not feel like they're getting duped, frankly.
Right. At the end of the day, whether you're like a big wig at a big company or I don't know, you're stay at home mom, not to put that on a lower and a higher level because stay at home moms are doing the work, let me tell you. But, no
Absolutely.
matter where you land in our economy, like we're all just people. So it's okay, companies, to admit that you're on a journey. I love that you said that because they're run by human beings who are learning and growing as well. Like that is perfect. Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
I
It's a
there's two
dial, not a switch.
It's a dial, not a switch. Ooh, I love that. Okay, so there are two sides to decluttering and living more minimally. One is decluttering your home, what you already own, getting that out of the house, and then the other side of it is not bringing more into your house. So I'd love to ask how we can do both sides of those sustainably. So let's start with getting things out of the house. What are sustainable things we can do with the stuff that we are no longer keeping?
Yeah, so absolutely. We can upcycle and recycle. Those are kind of the two best things. Recycling is, when you provide it through a recycling program, and it will be, decomposed and utilized by in a number of other places. Upcycling is when those same things, let's say clothes that we're no longer using, can be used for other purposes. So, sometimes you don't even have to get rid of those clothes. You can kind of cut it up and use it for art projects with your kids, or you can use it for cleaning cloths, or, there's a number of things that you can do with a lot of the things that we have, that kind of upcycle, repurpose some of those things, instead of just getting rid of them. Of course, some of that is also, you can donate them. And so, depending on kind of how, what type of quality those things are in and what they are, we can always donate. But, I think that there are certainly responsible ways to get rid of things in your house that can be then utilized in other ways downstream.
I love that. I'm a big donator here. Like, I'm all about it. If you have the time and energy to sell on Facebook Marketplace or at a consignment shop, I think that's great because, again, it's getting more use. That's the whole point. I love donating for a couple reasons. Obviously, I love the idea of being able to help offer something at a lower price or for free to someone who really needs it. And then the other side of the equation is like real selfish. I just don't have the time. Like
Yeah.
listing something for money, it just takes more time. I'm like, please, just let me just drop it where someone needs it. Do you know of any resources online or anything that comes to your mind of like companies or types of donation centers that are the most sustainable?
Yeah, I'm certainly happy to send a couple of links, for the show. But there are certainly programs that will come and either pick up your used cosmetics jars or skincare jars. They also have a drop-off program, I believe, at a few Sephora's or Ultas. I'll have to double check, but I can certainly provide that link. And in fact, there are some certain companies that will take old sneakers and upcycle or recycle those textiles because that's like a regular recycle program wouldn't be able to do that. So there's a lot of specialty ones that, if you're having trouble getting rid of something, you could either look it up and typically there will be something that will be able to take that. Or, again, I'll send a couple of links.
That would be great. And I'll include those in our show notes, everybody. And I think for me, it's the practical step, right? Of it feels easier just to take that old makeup jar and just toss it in the trash can,
Yeah.
right? But as human beings who are trying, they're in their journey. If you feel like I'm ready to take that next step, the hardest time for me, it's the first time. The first time that you Google, how do I get rid of a makeup jar sustainably? Just Google that. How do I get rid of shoes sustainably? You can Google it and you're probably going to find an answer. That will be the longest process. And from that point forward, it won't feel as hard anymore because you've done it once. So I really appreciate you being able to offer some of those links. And I just want to encourage people too, because I'm encouraging myself. I'm preaching to myself here, like just do it once and then it won't feel so hard. Okay, so then we have the other side of minimalism, which is not bringing in as much. Obviously, like you can get rid of as much as you want, but your house is going to stay cluttered if you continue to replace those things with new items. So, what are some sustainable shopping habits we can get into?
Great question. I mean, again, shopping at places in which you can bring back the goods when they're either done or they're no longer in the same, condition that you had bought them. Increasingly clothing stores and again, makeup stores are doing that. And in fact, they're incentivizing customers to do that through discounts and so forth. Make the most of what you do buy so you don't have to keep buying more. So that's, fast fashion is a big, big issue. We're bombarded by Instagram ads. Admittedly, sometimes I am the victim of those. They really do. They have a great algorithm that they really target you. But,
Yes.
try not to become a victim of those ads and participate or partake in fast fashion because it's too easy to really kind of bring in more and more, whether you're talking about new and innovative or new fashion looks or your new makeup or new food items. They really make it enticing. So just try to not fall into that category or into that trap. And then I would say, yeah, like prolong the things that you do have. So that's a little different than not buying new things, but it's, treat the things that you have with care so that, and make them feel special so that you feel like you don't have to get rid of it as much and not bring in as much. The two obviously go
Uh,
hand in hand, consumption and waste.
yes. It's interesting. You just kind of gave me a little aha moment that's going to sound really obvious, but I often say to my kids, or I remember my mom saying to me, and then it comes out of my mouth, and I'm like, "Ooh, I'm my mom." But you need to take care of your things. Like I'm not going to buy you new things if you're not taking care of what you already have. When
Yeah.
I leave my jeans all over the ground, or my shirts crumpled up in a ball next to the laundry room for a week when I was 13 or whatever. And another side of that is so true is we have to take care of our things so that we don't get rid of them as quickly. I mean, that's something that I can teach my kids even when it comes to their toys is like, hey, we're not throwing toys, not only because we don't want to hit our 2-year-old brother in the head with them and we don't want them to break because we want to be able to keep playing with them, but also, you know, replacing that toy isn't great for the environment. I mean, we could talk about that. It
Exactly.
isn't great. There's like ways to make it work, or even for myself, I'll give an example. I um, decided, or I wasn't careful, and I threw in these like coveralls into the dryer that shouldn't be in the dryer. And I saw it as it was happening. I saw myself putting them in, and I was like, I just can't. If these shrink in the wash, they shrink in the wash. I shouldn't have bought them to begin with because my life is too busy to worry about things that need to not go in the dryer. Like, you know, and I usually shop with that in mind, frankly,
Yeah.
because of my life right now with 3 kids, 5 and under.
Yeah.
But I threw it in and then hoped for the best. I tried to put it on yesterday and I look ridiculous, like I'm trying to squeeze into a baby's outfit because it shrank so much, you know? And so now I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm not going to, I don't have that anymore. But I love that you said that because I should have been more thoughtful, not just because of my own convenience in keeping something that I like to wear, but because now I have one less thing in my closet that I did wear relatively often, and I'm going to want to replace that, and that is consuming more, even though it's not going to clutter up my closet. Right? I don't have that other
Yeah.
one in, so my closet's not going to look any different. But it's not just about me; it's the sustainability of what I am consuming on the higher level. So those
That's
were some
right.
big aha moments for me right there.
That's great. And you know, something someone said to me once, it was a woman who does, her whole business is focused on kind of refurbished clothing and kind of, you know, uh, what's the reselling clothing. She's
Mm-hmm.
like, look, the fast fashion happens, you know, when clothing is created in this really cheap way. They're garnering cheap fabrics, they're putting it together. And of course, that's not going to last as long. But these clothes that can be resold over and over again are typically of really high quality. And so, you know, going and partaking in kind of the whole resale fashion world, or the same applies to toys. Toys is a great example. You're typically, you know, working with some of the best quality clothing or toys or whatever that may be, rather than some of the cheapest things. And you know, I thought that was just really compelling because that makes it, you know, feel a lot nicer.
Yeah, so compelling. And also, just when it comes to how we care for our things, this is a good point. I have, let's say, like some sweaters that are really nice. And I don't know their sustainability background, full disclosure,
Yeah,
but I spent a little more money on them. I was more intentional about buying them. So you better believe I'm not throwing that in the dryer, you know?
yeah,
But those coveralls were an Amazon purchase for probably $19. And so
yeah.
in my head, I was like, it's $19, whatever, right? And so part of shopping more sustainably is being so intentional with what we buy, hopefully from a sustainable company and a fashion house as well, but also just that long-term mindset that fast fashion is cheap and therefore we also won't care for it quite as much, right? We care for the things that we invest in a little bit more.
That's completely right. And I think the other part is just the education. I mean, I think everyone wants to be more sustainable, be more mindful about their consumption and their waste, but they're often not incentivized. They don't have that connection to doing so. And you know what I'm hoping, and you know, as you know, I'm coming out with a book towards next year, or the beginning of next year, is that if people have the facts, if they have the education and knowledge about what's happening, then they can link their actions to that. They'll feel better about it. They'll feel more incentivized and more connected to actually act on some pretty obvious and easy things, but they'll remember it more and they'll think about it more. And so, you know, I have a few examples if you want to hear it, but,
Yes,
you know,
please.
I want to be mindful of time as
No,
well.
no, we've got some time. Let's do it.
Yeah, so great. You know, part of what I do is, like I said, I try to bring sustainability into the context that people know, try to meet them where they are. So, you know, I have a couple of facts and actions that are kind of grouped in what we wear, what we eat, and so forth. So, in terms of what we wear, one of the facts is that 22 billion pairs of shoes are thrown away every year. And each of them can take 30 to 40 years to decompose in a landfill. And so the action there is Drop off old sneakers to textile recycling bins in your area, often located near shopping malls. So, those big things that are there. And textile recycling companies can upcycle old sneaker materials into things such as insulation, surfacing for playgrounds, and courts and carpet padding. So, again, this major effect, if one by one, all of us start doing that, again, it can have a real impact. Maybe I'll mention a couple more. What we eat. So approximately one third of the food produced that is intended for human consumption every year, which is about 1.3 billion tons valued at $1 trillion, is wasted or lost. So one third of that, 1.3 billion tons or $1 trillion of food is just lost and wasted. And that wasted amount is enough to feed 3 billion people. And so so given that gravity, an action is to consider the different ways you can upcycle food waste at home. So examples, soak banana peels. I actually really like this when I do this with the kids. Soak banana peels overnight and use that to water your plants. That water becomes high in nutrients, and you're utilizing that banana peel a little bit more than you would have otherwise.
And it's a fun activity for the kids because I always am looking for
Exactly.
something to give them to do. They would love that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Instead of throwing away wilted greens, blend them and freeze them into ice cubes to use them for smoothies. Make your own facial mask with leftover fruits and vegetables. I love that one because it's actually really fun. Um, and then, I'll just mention one more because I think it's just so amazing as well as 700. So the fact of around, what we use around the house. 785 million people around the world live without clean drinking water. And so, one action we can take is save water by using a car wash instead of hand washing your car, because that's more efficient. You just waste a lot of water when you're hand washing, or running a full dishwasher instead of washing dishes by hand, and turning off faucets while brushing your teeth. So, again, super simple things. In fact, the car wash and dishwasher is more convenient than actually washing the dishes or washing your car. But it's little things like that that can save water. And again, one by one, if we all do it, it'll make a difference, hopefully.
Right. And it's not making our life harder, those choices at all. My husband gets on me about the water with the brushing your teeth because he is an engineer for ships in the Coast Guard. And
Oh,
when they would go out on the boats, they are very intentional with how they use their water, whether it's for quick showers. They do their boat showers where they turn it on, they lather up, and as they're lathering, they turn the water off until it's time to rinse their hair, that kind of thing. So it drives him crazy if ever I forget to to turn off the sink while I'm brushing my teeth, because he's in charge of the entire boat. When he was on a ship, he was the engineering officer, so he was in charge of making sure they had enough water for everybody. And so he had to get on people if they were wasting that, and so we can see that as a implemented a big picture just off of a ship. But that's a nice little visual of how that can affect an entire community, right? It's just the
yeah,
community on the ship in the water.
absolutely.
My husband will be really excited that you said that to me. Wait, so can you tell us the name of your book coming out and when it's coming out, and how it's outlined? I love that you shared some of these examples, but I read about how it's 52 facts and ways because it's for an entire year. So can you tell us just a little bit more?
Yeah, so I kept it simple. It's called Simple Sustainable Behaviors for Sustainable Living. And what I've done is, it's meant to be somewhat of a coffee table book or a book that you kind of have as a quick pickup. But it's just 52 facts associated with 52 actions that people can do. And the idea there is once a week, try to implement one of those actions, and slowly but surely, hopefully that becomes a habit, and it becomes, it turns into the new way that you live life, a more sustainable and simple life.
I just think it is so practical and so smart and not overwhelming. I'm like, one thing per week. I cannot wait to get my hands on it because that is just right up my alley. I love anything that just tells me exactly what to do. Just tell me. Don't make me figure it out. Tell
Yeah.
me what to do and don't overwhelm me. And I just think that's incredible. Um, and I'm curious too. I know that I read in your bio something that made me really excited was how you are helping the next generation. And
Yeah.
as a mom, I am not well versed in this, as you can tell as we talk. And so I'd love to hear some resources you have to help teach our children how to develop these sustainable habits.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the website that I run, sustainableme.today, it's really a passion project. It's the website that helps people, regular people, consumers understand sustainability more. And part of it was also to kind of bring my kids into the mix. And so, my 12-year-old son, Soren, he pretty much runs it with me. He has a weekly-ish, maybe more monthly, depending on the time of the year, um, podcast that he runs. And the whole idea there is sustainability with Soren in less than 5 minutes. So he takes like this topic of sustainability, breaks it down at a level that a 12-year-old would understand it because he does the research and, talks about it in less than 5 minutes. Quick pickups that can be really used for kids as well. And so, my thought there is that our kids, the next generation, are going to have to think about sustainability far more than us. For right now, for us, it's a luxury, it's an afterthought. We can choose to do it. For them, it's going to be what they live and breathe. Every part of their life, every job they have is going to include an element of sustainability. And so I always think, I think it's so important that we live by example and that we teach these kids. And I know that, everything I ask of my cohort, my generation will take work. It's educating ourselves and changing behavior and shifting our philosophies. But when we do the work right now, the hope is that our next generation, for them, it will become the norm. It's just how they live their life, and it'll hopefully accelerate a pathway to a more sustainable world at a far faster pace than we're able to do right now. And so I think it's so
Yes.
important to engage the kids in all of this.
I mean, we're already beginning to see that. My little brother is significantly younger than me. He's 15 years younger. He's 21. And even in his generation, like the
Yes.
college kids now, oh my gosh, the way they think about the planet and the way they think about what they consume is so drastically different. And it doesn't feel like they are doing this heavy lift. They're like, yeah, obviously, Shannon, And I'm like, no, that's really cool. That was not a thought in my brain when I was 20 years old. And I am so obsessed that Soren has a podcast, a 12-year-old podcast, because my 5-year-old, he's our oldest, Anders, is
Oh,
super into podcasts by kids for kids recently. Like he just
yeah.
found one. He's super into sharks. That's his thing right now. And he found one. It's just called Amazing Shark Facts. And it's this little kid that gets on there for 5 minutes or less, just like you said, and just tells some facts about sharks. And that's what we listen to on the 5-minute drive home from school. And so I can't wait to offer that to him too, because kids love to learn from other kids, right? It's like they
Absolutely.
think that's so cool.
I don't know if he thinks it's so cool. Definitely in the beginning, as you would imagine, a 12-year-old kid. He was 11 when we started. He's like, "Oh, do I have to do this, mommy?" But he wanted to be out and play basketball or hang out with his friends. But it's been almost about 8 months, and we're into episode 20 something, and he's into it now. He'll think of a topic and he'll do the research, and I'll go through it with him after he does the research. And it's for him, it's become something that he actually really looks forward to, and uses as a means to actually talk to his uncles and aunts, and some of the people that he wants to look cool in front of, that he has this knowledge. So
Yeah, it's like a kind of a cool, almost homework assignment for your kid. And it's not only teaching them to learn how to research and learn how to be passionate about a subject, but also how to communicate, because they have to be able to say,
yes.
it's like a speech class almost. I think it's so cool to encourage your kid to start a podcast. Okay, so the other thing I was going to say, because you mentioned Sustainable Me, and I just wanted to let everybody know, and we'll make sure they have your information to the website addresses and that kind of thing. But when I was looking through the website, something that I really appreciated is you have laid out from beverages like wine and coffee to fashion houses, beauty houses. You have lists of sustainable companies that we can choose from. And to me, that was like the most helpful thing ever. So thank you for that. And I wanted to make sure everyone knows that that's on there, so that when we say, hey, this is her website, you know that there's some really practical links you can click on and just change your shopping habits.
Yeah, and I'll mention that by no means were those sponsored. They're just meant to be actually examples, but those are ones that I myself have looked through, have kind of read the impact reports or read the background, that I feel like, they are on the right pathway at least. And so better a green product than a brown product, even if they're not all the way, where they can be.
They're on their journey. That's
They're
what we
on their
learned.
journey.
Okay, so I'm going to close out with 2 questions that I like to ask everybody. So in your own life, what is one area, physical or otherwise, that you are paring down or you want to pare down?
Clothing. I think that it is so important. It's one of the areas that have the biggest impact with regards to emissions and deforestation and reducing our biodiversity. So for me, from a sustainability aspect, I want to pare that down, but actually also from a minimalistic standpoint. I do think that when I look in my closet, I'm like, oh my gosh, my head's spinning. I don't even wear half these things. I really, that's an area that I know that I have to pare down and change my behavior.
Awesome. That's a big one. It's a tough one, but it's so good. It feels so good when you can just walk in your closet and you like everything that's in there. It's easy to see and you can just grab it. I love it. Okay, and this is a fun one. What is something that you look forward to in your life right now? It can be as simple as a show that you like sitting down to watch, or an event, holiday, anything.
Yeah, great question. It's actually hanging out with my kids. And I know that sounds so cliche and cheesy, but they are at this age. I have 2 boys, they're 9 and 12. And literally every night for the last 3 months, we have been either playing card games or board games. So when I come home from work or when I'm done with work and we're done with dinner, it is just our staple now. And I look forward to that every single day. It's so much fun.
Oh, that is so fun. Oh, that makes me excited for the future too. I mean, I love our kids' ages right now, but like I'm ready to play cards instead of pretend dinosaur, honestly. Okay. And where can people find you online to follow and learn?
Yeah, great question. So, if your company happened to be listening, certainly you can go to www.radiantglobaladvisory.com. That's my advisory and consulting site. And again, there, the purpose is to just help companies in the impact and sustainability space or have products in that space grow their footprint so that we can further stimulate that, those areas more than others. And then if you're a consumer looking to just learn more, if you're a person just looking to learn more, you can check out www.sustainableme.today, or I'm on Instagram, it's at sustainableme.today, and get more information or just contact me and I'm happy to help.
All of those links, everything will be in the show notes, everybody. And thank you so much, Shila. This has been enlightening and exciting and motivating and such a perfect way to kind of kick off the new year. I cannot thank you enough.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shannon. And thank you for shedding some light on this topic. I really do appreciate that.
You just listened to an episode of Paring Down with me, Shannon Leyko. If you enjoyed the show, it would mean the world if you can leave a review wherever you listen and share this episode with a friend. Those reviews really are what keeps a podcast on its feet for the long haul, and I will read every single one with a huge smile on my face, so thank you ahead of time. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit subscribe. Also, be sure to follow along on Instagram at Paring Down Podcast, where I offer lots of tips and inspiration for paring down, along with what's new here on the podcast. Till next time.